So, this is the lecture for Ancient and Medieval History for Monday, the 30th of November, 2020. And a reminder that today and tomorrow, for those of you who are not here, your Odyssey worksheets are due. They are the last 2 pages or 4-page sides from your Unit 2 note packets. Make sure that when you come in, you have your names on everything, but that you staple them together after you tear them out of the note sheet. Let's see. So you saw the Odyssey, and I guess the first point is let's go over some things relating to that. Do you have any questions based on what you saw or comments about things that stood out?
I did notice that, Odysseus is like, you were true to me, you're so wonderful. And, but he was doing all sorts of things with the other women the whole time.
He was, but here's where we get into the question I asked the Thursday before we left, which is Penelope, being a woman, was expected to be faithful in thought, word, and deed. Why? Because women have babies, among other things. Odysseus was obviously not faithful in deed. The question is, could he have gotten back if he had refused to sleep with Circe or Calypso? Was it possible for him to survive and have a fighting chance to get home if he had refused to sleep with the sorceress or the sea nymph? Do you have any thoughts on that? Because you raised your hand. You don't have to, but do you?
It just brings up a different point. It makes more sense now why he would do that, I guess.
Well, I don't think. Okay, here's another question, and this is for anyone. At any time, did Odysseus stop loving Penelope and stop primarily wanting to get back to her? So, yes.
I was going to say no.
Okay. I think most of us would agree. Odysseus remains faithful in word and deed. At no time does he forswear Penelope. At no time does he say, this sex with a goddess thing's pretty darn good. So I'm going to stay here on Calypso's island. And Calypso, unlike Circe, loved him. Had he stayed on Calypso's island, he would have undergone some form of apotheosis, and he would no longer have been a mortal man. This is a guy who could have become basically a godling. Instead, he chooses to go home. Now, in our egalitarian society that has pretenses towards gender equality, it seems rather strange, even hypocritical. But I will throw this out there for you to criticize. Be it resolved that Odysseus was as faithful as he possibly could be. He was faithful in thought and word. He could not be faithful in deed because it would have prevented him from getting home. Therefore, like Penelope, he was true to his wife, and his marriage as true as he could be. Do you wish to debate or discuss that point? If so, have at me. Yeah.
Well, most of it, like you said, was to he needed to sleep with those people so he could survive and everything. And so I'm trying to find out how to word these things.
Mm-hmm.
So he sort of needed to do that to survive, but he didn't exactly give up on his wife when he had the chance.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the factor of we don't exactly know if this entire story is just a legend or is actually something that happened.
That doesn't matter for us. Yeah. Basically, you know what legends are? Legends are not facts, but they are true. What could I possibly mean by that? Legends are not facts, but they are true. By the way, sometimes history is true, too. What's the difference between something that's factual and something that's true? Do you wish to get in that one? What is, yes?
I feel like factual is more of just, it's stating the parts of what's in the story without anything except what's there. It doesn't go off into a little bit of feelings or anything like that. I feel like true would be it's still saying the facts, but there's still maybe some emotion behind it.
Facts are data points. The sun rose at whatever time this morning. That's a fact. Light burst upon a darkened world. That's truth. If you've ever had a long, horrible night, whether because of nightmares or just terrible events or whatever, and then seen the dawn and felt hope, that truth that light has burst in and filled a darkened world will mean something to you. We are a society, because of technology, because of science, obsessed with facts. There are people who try to argue about the existence of God or objective good and evil using facts, whereas facts have very little to do with it. Truth is emotional. Truth is something that resonates with us. It echoes with us. Truth is something that speaks to the human condition. Are we simply bodies with a temporary electromagnetic field that has the capacity to give us the illusion of awareness and of life? And is that fact, when we die, that electromagnetic field dissipates, grounds out, the only life that we will ever know, the only significance that we have? You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals with a little sparkly in our heads. Is that fact germane to the notion of God, of the soul, of right and wrong, of good and evil? Or does that fact not matter? Because the truth is, most of us do feel, do believe that this mind that we have, which is not merely the brain, is something more than flesh and bone and time. That there is something transcendent about us. Most monotheists, when they read Genesis 1 and say that we are made in God's image, does that mean that Michelangelo was right and God looks like an old Italian guy? Or does it mean that we are born with a soul? And that soul is the image of God. I'm trying to explain the difference between facts and truth. An experiment can deal with facts. The meaning of that experiment, the significance of that experiment, that deals in truth. They are different. Some of you seem cold. Elizabeth. Just a little.
I couldn't from a jacket. So
it's okay. I encourage you to bring a sweatshirt or a sweater or something like that in future. Or, you could gain a lot of weight. Either way, you'll be shielded from the cold. Don't do that. It's not fun. Okay, so do you get what I'm saying? Does anyone wish to dispute the notion of fact and truth? The legends of Homer are true. Not because Laocoon was killed by a sea serpent that was sent by Poseidon, Olympian god of the sea, but because a human man who goes through life achieving things, pretty darn amazing things, is likely to have a moment of hubris, where he says the equivalent of, "Look at I, a mortal man, I've conquered Troy, I can do anything." Hubris. And in Greek myth, you, I'm sure, are learning from your English teacher, hubris invites nemesis. Overweening pride invites the cosmic smackdown. And Poseidon is good to Odysseus. Poseidon is Odysseus' best friend, because Odysseus is not destroyed. Odysseus goes on an Odyssey, a quest, a journey, about learning life lessons. Without the gods, a man is nothing. Poseidon allowed me to travel across his sea. I am one man in the world, no more and no less. To be angry is easy, but to be angry at the right time, in the right way, and at the right person, that is hard. All of those things. The notion of hospitality, the grief over the loss of his men, the betrayal of his men at the moment with the bag of winds. All of these things, like all the great works of literature and religion and mythology, deal with things that are universally true. The love between a husband and a wife. The fidelity of both of them to one extent or another. The temptation that is offered not just by lust, but by fear. Those suitors were bullies. They were trying to get Penelope to agree to be their wife, not out of love, but out of greed for the power that they would get by becoming king of Ithaca through marriage to her. And they did not come with respect, and they did not come with love, and they did not come alone. They came like a pack of jackals to prey upon a weakened target. All of these things still happen. Imagine for a moment. Yes, please.
I was gonna say that I was really impressed because no matter how hard they shoved and like, hey, marry me, she's like, nope, not happening. I know what your underlying wants are. That's not happening.
And that took courage, because all the men of military age had left with Odysseus. These guys were young teenagers when Odysseus left. Now they're the only men in Ithaca. And they've teamed up to be a predator against their own queen. And there's nobody that can stop them. The idea that the assembly would be called, a group of sick old men, that they would be able to get rid of the suitors? No. The suitors would kill them. And she, dealing with this reality, managed to, through cleverness and stubbornness, keep from becoming one of their wives. Had she become one of their wives, her son, Telemachus, would have died. And the moment she gave birth to a son for one of them, she would have died. Because they wouldn't have needed her anymore. Heck, they might have killed her before she had a son. Once they were married, then they'd marry somebody else. It was scary bad. And if you've ever been in a situation where you were weak and a bully was strong, you know what she felt. You know what she dealt with. So all of these things make Homer's epics worth remembering. They're the same thing that make Shakespeare worth remembering, that make The Lord of the Rings worth remembering, that make the Bible as literature, whether you believe or not, worth remembering. Because they all deal, they and so many other great works of literature and mythology and faith, they deal with truth about the human condition. And we need that truth. We hunger for it. We crave meaning. History is both facts and truth. You need facts, but history also, at its best, grapples with the meaning of things. And when you do that, you're grappling with the question of what is true here, what is important here. Any other thoughts on the Odyssey, on Odysseus, on any of that? Yeah.
As much as I don't like Odysseus, you have to admit that he's a really smart person. Unlike many other people, such as Agamemnon, Menelaus is actually kind of smart.
Mm-hmm.
Kinda. He's more smart than his brother. It's just simple as that.
Yeah.
But
well, Agamemnon gets killed by Clytemnestra.
Yeah, he gets killed by his wife in his bathtub. So, I mean, he pissed her off one too many times.
Yeah. Well, she was no treat anyway.
Yeah, she really wasn't. But essentially, Odysseus, this is very rare, but he was a very smart man. When he did something,
really? Go on.
When he did something, he learned from it.
Yeah.
I know
that. I know totally.
But essentially, when he did something, if it ended badly for him, he learned from it, and he chose to keep that in his mind in case he did something similar to it. And that was one of his best strengths, because after everything that hit him, he still kept fighting, and in the end, he learned a lot of things from that. Not only did he, even when he visited Tiresias, he learned that it's more the journey than the destination that counts. When he was with Circe, he learned how to outsmart somebody and not risk the lives of those around you. When he was with Calypso, he ultimately learned how to just be there for her, and then when it came time for her to be there for him, he got the exact same treatment. When he was able to leave, she let him leave, and she didn't fight him on it. And when he finally got back to Penelope, he got his kingdom back, and he got to see his wife again, which ultimately was the best reward for him.
This is absolutely well said. Odysseus' trait is his intelligence, his cleverness, his willingness to think things through. Do you understand that to be an Olympic athlete, not that I've ever been one, but I've actually known two, both of them swimmers, um, it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable being in that good physical condition. It requires constant effort to be in shape to do the Olympics. To be like Odysseus means that you have a mind that does not relax. I don't know how many of you felt the need to have an intellectual playtime where your mind wasn't having to deal with the challenges that school provides, where you were basically off duty. Odysseus did not let himself have that except with Penelope. His mind was always working. He probably had trouble sleeping because his mind was always working. It's not comfortable being Odysseus because you can't take things at face value. You have to constantly try to figure out what's really going on. But that uncomfortable trait, that mental awareness, that refusal to accept the world as it seems to be, is what makes Odysseus survive. It also makes Odysseus worth teaching. Would Poseidon have invested all that time in an Agamemnon or in an Achilles? No, because they wouldn't have appreciated it. Odysseus did. He really thought about it. He was teachable. Um, the Greek myths in general deal with some universal things. I don't go as deeply into them as Mrs. Solzvik does. She and Mrs. Stembridge both were incredible experts.
They shared brain cells.
Yeah. And it made for a wonderful experience. I have different strengths and I have different things that are important to me as a historian. But I can tell you the truth that is in Greek mythology is powerful today because it deals with the stresses between men and women, the stresses between old and young, the stresses between gods and man, and the fact that we don't all get along. We all have these petty ambitions and these grand ambitions, and they conflict. And it's not simple. Life's complicated, and all of these various characters play through that complexity. And the stories about how they play through them echo through the ages because they have truth in them. Yes.
One of the things I love most about ancient history, with Greece specifically, a lot of their stories are adapted from Egyptian myths and all that because that's where most people in the ancient times came from. Egypt was a starting place for a lot of different cultures.
Consider the role of Moses.
Yeah, and something I find personally so interesting about the Greeks is they were able to take different things they learned from the Egyptians and adapt it to their own need. And they were such wise people that even today we use so many of their different practices still because they had such a big significance on today's culture, such as theater, with hospitality, with the simple just learning how to do things. And it's such a big thing inside of today's culture and today's society. And it's so interesting to think how thousands of years ago, these people who if we hadn't gone out and tried to find them, we probably never would have discovered they existed.
Well, actually, we are them. We are their descendant. We are their lineal, cultural, and blood descendant in some cases.
However, as time passes on, there's a chance that if people hadn't discovered more about them, they probably would have been lost in time. Because even if we knew about them, over time, lineage and things like
that is possible. But we would not have remained the West.
That's true.
We're going to talk about all of these things, so I won't answer them now. But you're on to several important themes of the course, not just of the Greeks. What I said about Moses was Moses wrote the book of Genesis, inspired by God, believers believe. Moses, though, was not around for the creation. He didn't know Abraham personally. What Moses did is he took the oral traditions of the Hebrews and he wrote it down. Now, who was Moses? Moses was a royal Egyptian trained in religion and in government. And that training shaped what he wrote in Genesis and in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. All of those books, in other words, the fundamental basis of the Jewish faith, also comes through Egypt in a very important way, because Moses is shaped by his Egyptian education as much as by anything else. Good connection. Okay, now we're going to shift to why. Why is Greece so much like this? We're going to talk about the Polis. Remember, Homer is trying to inspire the people who are building the Hellenic Poli of Greece, the Hellenic city-states from 800, 700, 600 BC, to try to be a people that is unusually smart and creative and clever. And the polis, the city-state, is designed for this. It is designed to be a lens of creativity. The city-state is designed to be a lens of creativity. And there are three things in every good polis that is necessary to bring out the best qualities in each Greek citizen. First off, there is the Agora. The Agora is a marketplace. Here's a definition for you. It is a marketplace of goods, of services, and of ideas. It is a marketplace of goods, of services, and of ideas. The Agora is a marketplace of goods and services and ideas. It is the living, beating heart of the polis. It is a marketplace of goods, services, and ideas. It is the living, beating heart of the polis. Yes, that is part of the definition. It is the living, beating heart of the polis. Here is why. A human heart. Hello, gravity. A human heart pumps the blood from it to the widest extremities of the body, and then draws that blood back in through the lungs to get oxygenated, and then back through in the lungs area. They also get nutrified. The nutrition from the digestive system plays in, and then the blood is sent out again to oxygenate and nutrify all the extremities, and it's brought back in. In a polis, everyone goes to the Agora sooner or later. Everyone goes to the Agora. You need to. You could be a farmer living at the extreme end of the polis's territory, 25 miles away. You still have to go to the Agora. Every so often, you have to go to market to sell things, to buy things, to hear news, to tell stories, to connect with family members. So like the living, beating heart of a human body, the Agora brings together and then sends out people into the entire region, brings them in, loads them up with the nutrition they need, with the ideas that they have, marketplace of good services and ideas, and then sends them out the better for the experience. But the Agora is not simply the Greek version of a mall or of a supermarket. The Agora is good services and ideas. Trust me, if you go to the Spokane Valley Mall 3 weeks from now, in the height of Christmas shopping season, to the extent that we have one this year, and you stand up on a bench and start talking about God, faith, politics, philosophy, truth, or anything like that, what will happen?
Most likely, either people will get mad at you because you're shouting about something that ultimately is not very jolly. Also, people might stop and listen to what you're saying, but there's not a very high chance of it.
Well,
there's so much bustling around you.
Yeah, but if you're interested in convincing people, you've got to understand most people will reject what you say, at least at first.
They'll think you're insane.
Yeah. Either the guys in uniforms will come and take you away to the police department, or the guys in white coats will come and take you away to the infirmary, the asylum. It's not allowed. We Americans don't like to mix religion and philosophy and politics with our shopping.
You also need to survive the stampede of people flooding into the mall first.
Yeah, well, there's that. That's why you stand up on a bench.
No, thank you, because I'd like to live. Thank you very much.
The idea is, look, I grew up in a family of New Yorkers. So we always talked about politics and religion around the dinner table. When my fiancée first encountered my family at mealtime, she was shocked. I mean, her family, very accomplished, a lot of writers, teachers, aerospace engineer, and so forth. They never talked politics and religion at the dinner table because they thought it was unpleasant, because it would bring conflict, and the dinner table is a place to draw people in. We, people from New York, have a different approach, which is we enjoy the give and take of a good argument. And so we would purposely drop little truth bombs around the table, and they would go off, and then we would have a vigorous discussion. And that was considered fun by us. It was considered shockingly rude by my wife, who was not used to that. We Americans don't like to confuse our economic activity with anything else. We like to just be able to shop and listen to the music. So, not so in Greece. In Greece, anyone who wanted to could step up on the steps and start declaiming, start proclaiming, start talking about some religious idea, start talking about philosophy. Teachers, to the extent they existed in Greece, who had public lectures, would go to the Agora. I, as a history teacher, would go to the Agora and I would teach, and people would throw money in a hat, or they'd throw fruit at me. That's the thing. You go to the Agora and you get instant gratification or instant punishment. If you say things people don't want to say, they'll pick up everything from rotten fruit to rocks and wing it at your head. And, you got to be prepared for a little of that. You got to be pretty nimble on your feet. You got to be able to duck and weave and talk and try to keep people on your side. Teaching and lecturing was entertainment as well as anything else. And people would be happy to share their reaction, good or bad. People were lynched after speaking. People were ripped off the stage in the middle of their speech and beaten, sometimes to death. The Agora was a marketplace of good services and ideas. You expected to hear some crazy whack job talking about this, that, or the other thing, but you also might hear the most revered, wise person in the entire land giving forth and doing lecture. It was a place where you went to hear people talk, maybe to talk yourself, and anyone could do it. A marketplace of good services and ideas. We used to have that in the internet. I have a YouTube channel. I have two, actually. I have a school one and I have a personal one. My personal one deals with more of my politics. My school one are these lessons on videotape. I'm glad I have both of them. When I got on, I was reasonably certain that if I did anything but show child pornography, I was going to be fine. Because YouTube was an open marketplace of ideas. Not so anymore. For the last 4 or 5 years, YouTube, Facebook, which I used to do but don't anymore, and the other social media giants have clamped down. They've begun censoring information, preferring some narratives to other, calling some people's ideas fake news and other people's ideas valid news. They've taken sides. What should have been an open forum where anyone could go and talk about anything, and what was an open forum once has become now a controlled place where corporate giants decide who wins elections or who should win elections in their judgment. There are preferences and there are people who are punished. I don't like that. YouTube, I've told you this before because you've asked me in surveys. I don't like that. You should be a clear pane of glass, not a lens shaping the light coming through. And you have become a lens. And that is a shame. It's the loss of an open forum. It's the loss of the Agora. It's the loss of the Town Square in revolutionary New England. There should be a place where people, anyone, you don't have to have special qualifications, where anyone can go and talk. And if people want to listen, they'll listen. If people don't want to listen, they'll throw fruit or they'll just walk away. We lose when we don't have something like that. And the Greeks, and I will call on you, the Greeks understood this. The Agora was set up that way on purpose. Now, of course, if you start speaking against the king, and you're in a kingdom, you're not in Athens, you're in Megara or some other Greek city, or Thebes, or some other Greek city-state, if you do that, you're taking a risk. The king may say, oh yes, I allow that public critic. The king may also say, give me that head. I don't care about the body, I just want the head of the public critic. In which case, you're captured and then zips up, you're beheaded, and then the head gets brought to the king. That happened too. But anyone could go there. It wasn't like our malls, which are places where nobody is allowed to do that unless they've gotten a permit and unless they have permission of the owners. Yes, thank you for waiting.
The town square thing reminds me of at Gaming Club a few years ago, one of our games, someone in the game decided that they were just going to get into the middle of our town square and just started shouting about communism and read the Communist Manifesto, and it didn't end well. But it was so ridiculous.
Well, the thing is, do you understand what it takes to be willing to be a fool for what you believe in?
Yeah.
I do it for a living. I am willing to make a fool of myself in order to be a more effective history teacher. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I don't do that all the time. This isn't the School of Rock. But I do think that it is worth me standing up and risking getting all of my dignity and by for the sake of telling these stories, because I think these stories are worth hearing, and I think they'll make you better citizens. That's why I do what I do. But it's not easy for somebody who isn't as naturally extroverted to do these things. And the same thing is true for going to the Agora. It takes guts. It takes guts to put your ideas out there, because it's so much easier to be a critic and rip somebody else's ideas down than it is to be a generator of your own ideas. It's so much easier to point out the failings in others than it is to step up and try your best, knowing that you will have failings too. You can't avoid it. And so many people are so afraid of having that criticism that they never step forward. And the light that's behind their eyes and the ideas that they uniquely bring to the world are unexpressed, unfulfilled, wasted, because of fear. The Agora is not a place for the cowardly, but it is a place that the Greeks understood was healthy for the body politic. So that's the first structure. The second structure is the amphitheater. Now, an amphitheater looks like a stone ear on the side of a hill, carved into the side of a hill. Basically, you've got a stage, which is sort of round, and then you've got a series of steps going up, and depending upon how big the amphitheater is, and the steps sort of circle around the stage, and you have on this side the same thing. I'm going to do it more roughly. And why is it shaped this way? You've got a hill behind it. Why is it shaped this way? Yeah.
One of the reasons why it's shaped this way is because simply, if you're going to be in the middle of the stage area, trying to project such a large space, that circular shape in itself creates an echo.
Yeah. Anything to add?
Well, it's also like the shape of it means that you can see the people in the middle, even if you're like short.
Yeah. Anything to add? Okay. I don't think much about the short thing because I'm not short, but I get it. I accept that there are short people in this world and they have special needs. Sorry, couldn't help it. It's shaped like a human ear for a reason. You don't need this cartilaginous floppy thing to hear. There are people in this world who've had their ears cut off, or they've lost them somehow, and they've still got a hole, and they've still got the equipment that allows you to hear. Unfortunately, they don't hear very well. What this does is it cups the sound in such a way as to help you determine the direction that the sound is coming from. It also makes it easier for you to hear things far away. The shape of the amphitheater is designed to cup the sound so that not only can everyone, even short people, see the people on the stage, but so that actors who are familiar with projecting their voices can project their voices and be reasonably certain that the people in the highest rows will hear them accurately. Now, why is the amphitheater important? Because of comedy and tragedy, because of drama. I'll explain. You have the wisdom that your body earns, the wisdom that you come from your own life experiences. If you've loved and lost, you have the wisdom that comes from that. If you've loved and realized you don't want that, that's another type of wisdom. If you've never loved, well, you wonder about it and you read stories or you see movies. Greek drama, comedy and tragedy, helps us to see experiences that allow us to live other people's lives and learn from their experiences. By learning about Sam and Frodo on the way to Mordor, you may learn about your own courage. By learning about Hamlet and his indecision over whether or not to take action against who he thinks is probably his father's killer. You get to live that experience, even though you're not experiencing that in your life. We leaven our personal experiences with the experiences in the myths and literature and drama that we experience vicariously. The amphitheater allows us to live and benefit from the wisdom of hundreds of other lives, maybe thousands of other lives. The plays that are performed there Some will make you laugh. Some will make you cry. Either way, you'll kiss a drachma goodbye. It is about encountering the world through the mind of the playwright. Learning from the fool. Learning from the tragic hero. With the amphitheater, any Greek can try not only to consume entertainment, but to produce it. You don't need to be a certain type of person to write a play. And actors were considered somewhere between prostitutes and, well, no, they were lower than prostitutes. Actors were considered to be the scum of the earth. So getting actors to work for you and, producing a production in the amphitheater is something that a lot of people could do if they chose to. With the Agora, you have the ability to interact with the idea makers personally. In the amphitheater, you have a chance to go into the private world of an author, of a playwright, and experience the moral lesson that they're grappling with. And we'll talk a little about these moral lessons when we talk about Sophocles and Aristophanes and the various dramatists and comedics of Greek drama. But the amphitheater allows this. It allows for people to live the lives of others. Now, the third place is the temple. Remember, a culture is a group of people bound together by core beliefs. The temple reminds people of what those core beliefs are. The temple also, in addition to reminding people of what those core beliefs are, minister to the needs of people when they're asking the big questions. Why is there disease? Why is there death? Why is there the premature death of children? Why do good things happen to bad folk? Why do bad things happen to good folk? I'm facing death. What can I expect? Dealing with people at their worst and at their best is what the temple is for. The temple helps people be reminded of who they are as a group, but it also helps people address the big questions in life. So the temple ministers to the moral needs. The amphitheater allows people to experience the lives of others. The Agora allows people to engage in the hurly-burly of ideas, of learning, of controversy. These things don't necessarily exist in Babylon or in Memphis or Thebes in Egypt. They don't necessarily exist in the capital of Assyria, Nineveh. They don't necessarily exist in Persepolis, but they exist in pretty much every single Greek city-state. Because the polis is a lens of creativity. Do you see how these areas all bring out the creative ideas of the people who live in the polis? There's a place to express those ideas in the Agora or in the amphitheater. There's a place to get comfort and to get ideas and guidance in the temple. We come together, we go apart. We're individuals, we're a group, we're individuals again. It's a lens of culture. It's the beating heart of the polis. And these three things make it so. If you want, you can throw in the Olympic Games because they add a different dimension of life, the sort of physical expression. Do you have any questions about the polis and how it was a lens of creativity and a living beating heart? Okay. One of the things that make the polis successful is they never are allowed during this performative period to get too large. In our city right now, Coeur d'Alene, throughout the region, we're seeing what happens when you have massive growth. In the last 40 years, the population has tripled since it was, what is 40 years ago, 1980? How big was Coeur d'Alene in 1980 compared to how big it is now, yeah?
I think about 10,000.
Wow. And I think with this census, we were 50 or 60,000 in 2010. We're probably 75 or 80,000 now, maybe more. That's an amazing amount of growth in a very short period of time. And the community is suffering for it. I mean, it's exciting. There's a lot of money flying around. But at the same time, the people who lived here have seen what was an intimate, nice, small town become something unrecognizable.
Yeah, for me personally, I've lived here my entire life, so I've seen it go through a lot of changes within those 16 years that I've been alive,
Mhm.
which is really saying a lot considering that I haven't been alive very long
That's
considering some
true.
other people. And one of the reasons why I'm moving to Spokane is because I want to keep living here, but when me and my family left for Hawaii, there was nowhere near as much like stuff going on here as it was when we left.
Mhm.
When we came back a year and a half later, there are new buildings everywhere. Certain places that I remember being there my entire life were just gone,
Yeah.
knocked down for more room for people to build more houses, and it changed so much within that year and a half that I was gone.
I came here
I
in
can't-
2014, and I've seen massive
Yeah,
change.
I can't even continue living in Idaho anymore because the housing has gone up so much.
Mhm.
I had this beautiful house down in Post Falls when I was little, and we had it for 5 years, but then we moved because our mortgage got so high that we couldn't afford it.
This, by the way, is not normal. Coeur d'Alene and the region in general is suffering from the influx of massive numbers of people for a variety of reasons that are not typical. I've lived in New York City. I've lived in suburban Connecticut. I've lived in urban and rural Maine. And I've lived here in North Idaho. And this is the only time I've seen this kind of growth. What we do is we simply let our cities and towns get bigger. That's not what the Greeks did. Here's what they did. It's kind of neat. What the Greeks did during this period of formation is when they got to about 50,000, they thought, okay, that's about as big as we want to get. So they would make an offer to young people. We, the fathers of the Polis, have set aside money for ships and seed and tools and weapons, and we want volunteers, brave young people to go out into the world and establish colonies. And if you fail, then you fail. But if you succeed, you become the founding fathers of your own country. You become the people who set the stage for how things are going to be in your city. Yes, you'll be associated with us. You'll be a son or a daughter city to us. But we are all in the same family, and as you build your own city, you'll build your own traditions. The closest thing we have in the United States to that today is Alaska. It is still possible, if you want, as a young person, to go to Alaska, to certain parts of Alaska, and just set yourself down. And if you survive there for over a year, the land is yours. It's called homesteading. It's how the West was settled during the 1800s. Well, they're still homesteading in Alaska. Now, there's a reason why they do this. Alaska's really hard to live in. There are all sorts of challenges to living there that you would never face in the lower 48 states. Alaska is one of the hardest places to live on Earth. But if you can do it, you don't need money. You just need guts, and skill, and luck, and stick-to-itiveness, and a willingness to endure pain. Alaska is that last great frontier until we go up into space, hopefully. So imagine, instead of being stuck when you graduate from high school or college in an economy dominated by old people, in an economy that does not have dynamism, that does not have a lot of jobs, that does not have a lot of jobs at a living wage, an economy where you're going to be struggling just to make ends meet in some mediocre job. Or you could join an expedition to go into the wilderness and try to build a new home, a new city in the wild. Which would you choose? Now, some of you may choose to stay, and that's fine. But a number of you, I think, would choose the adventure, the danger, the excitement, and the possibility of building something that's never been before, in a place that's never had it before, and of being in at the ground floor, of being the ones to set the tone, of being the senior people, the leaders of your new community. That's exciting. So what happens is, the Greeks end up settling colonies in what we now call Western Turkey, They end up setting colonies all around the Aegean Sea. They have colonies on Cyprus. They have colonies along what is now the southern Turkish coast, around the Black Sea, on the Crimea. They have colonies in southern Italy, to the point where the ankle, heel, toe, and Sicily are called, early in Rome's history, Magna Graecia. Magna Graecia for Greater Greece, because the area is more Greek than Italian. They settle in parts of the Spanish coast, the southern French coast, the North African coast. This little bulge here, where Benghazi is today, was called Cyrenaica for the Greek city-states that were established. Greeks settle in Egypt. They go everywhere. But particularly they settle the area around the Aegean Sea and the Mediterranean coast. The city of Masia, what we now call Marseille, I think was started as a Greek colony. Syracuse in Sicily, a Greek colony. So what the Greeks do is when their cities get too large in this early phase, they set out seeds of civilization. And some of the seeds die, but some of the seeds flourish and grow and expand Greek civilization around the entire Mediterranean basin. Now, they're not the only ones there. The Greeks live among the Celts in France, and they live among the Italians in Italy. They live among the Carthaginians on Sicily. But they are there. They exist as part of culture all around the central city. So Greek society not only keeps the intimacy of the small town, the polis, by sending colony after colony after colony out when it gets too big, but they also expand the Greek world to include the entire Mediterranean basin and the Black Sea as well. So that is, let's see, where we will leave things for today. And tomorrow we will start the Persian Wars. Any questions? You can talk quietly until the end of the period. Thank you at home for your attention. Bye-bye.